They say midnight is when the living sleep and the dead begin to stir. In the village of Obalanga, no one feared the dark more than they feared silence, for in silence, the drum could speak. And when it did, the earth itself seemed to tremble. The first cry of the cursed drum came on a night when the moon hid behind swollen clouds, and the stars themselves dimmed as though ashamed to watch. The air was heavy, swollen with a dread no one could name. Children clung to their mothers. Restless, though nothing yet disturbed the night, dogs refused to bark. Goats pressed against one another, eyes glowing white in the darkness, as if sensing what humans could not. And then it came, boom! Not the joyous rhythm of a festival drum, nor the casual beat of a hunter announcing his kill. It was a sound like a heartbeat torn from the chest of a dying man. Slow, deliberate, too deep for wood or hide to produce. The village stirred. Fires sputtered in courtyards. Doors creaked open as fearful faces peered into the night. Some thought it was the wind knocking against hollow trees. Others prayed it was the playful teasing of forest spirits. But then it came again. Boom! This time, it was followed by something that turned every heart to stone. A voice! It was not sung, nor shouted, nor chanted. It was spoken, clear, cold, and terrible. Kaho! The name slid through the air like smoke, curling into every hut, every ear. Kaio was but a boy, barely 12 seasons old. His mother screamed, clutching him to her breast, while his father stumbled outside with a machete, as if steel could silence what came from the unseen. The villagers gathered in the square, trembling. The elders pressed their cowrie-covered staffs into the ground, whispering prayers no one had heard since the old wars. Women clutched charms around their necks, spitting on the ground to ward off evil. But the drum was not done. Adaku. A woman fainted instantly, collapsing in the dust. Adaku was her daughter, a girl of 15, full of laughter, her betrothal set for the next moon. Boys who had courted her wept openly, for they knew what it meant. The cursed drum was naming its feast. Each name it spoke was a death sentence. No warrior, no medicine man, no sacrifice had ever saved one chosen by the drum. And though none dared speak it aloud, the truth was carved into the marrow of Obalanga's bones. The drum never lied. Boom! Another name, another scream. The chief, an aging man with eyes clouded like river fog, tried to steady his people. "Stay within your homes! Do not listen! Cover the children's ears!" But even as he spoke, he trembled. For he knew, as everyone did, that no wall of mud and straw could keep out the voice of the drum. By the time the sound ceased, 12 names had been called, 12 souls marked. The village lay in a shivering hush, broken only by the wails of mothers and the curses of men, too afraid to show their fear. And then, silence. The drum was done. The people scattered back to their huts, whispering, praying, hoping dawn might undo the horror of night. But dawn did not bring comfort. For with the first cock's crow, a cry tore through the air, sharper than any rooster. Kaio's father had found his eldest son, not the boy named, but his older brother lying cold in the yard, his chest split open, ribs hollow, his heart missing. The people of Obalanga shuddered, for they remembered the oldest whisper of all. The cursed drum was carved from the chest of a king, and it hungered still. But the horror did not end there. By midday, 2 more bodies were discovered. One was Adaku herself, the girl whose name had been spoken. She lay by the riverbank, eyes wide open as though she had seen something too great for human eyes, her laughter forever stolen. The other was a warrior, strong and fearless, who had dared to shout at the drum the night before, telling it to be silent. His tongue had been torn out and placed in his open palm, as if mocking his defiance. The drum had spoken, and now it had answered. The people gathered in the chief's courtyard, confusion and terror boiling like thunderclouds. Old women wailed, men beat their chests, young boys clung to their fathers' legs. "This is witchcraft," someone shouted. "No, it is the gods punishing us," cried another. "The spirits of the forest are angry," an elder muttered. shaking his cowrie beads. But a voice cut through them all. It was old Mama Efuru, the oldest woman in Obalanga, whose face was a web of wrinkles, and whose eyes had seen nearly a century of sorrows. She pointed a shaking finger toward the forest. "It is not the gods, nor the spirits. It is the drum. The cursed drum of Obalanga has awakened." A hush fell. No one wished to hear those words spoken aloud, for the legend of the cursed drum was older than memory, whispered only in the darkest corners, told to frighten children into silence. But here was Mama Efuru, saying it with certainty. The chief scowled. "Enough of your tales, woman. The drum is buried. It was hidden generations ago." Mama Efuru spat on the ground. "You think wood rots when it is carved from a king's chest? You think time silences a curse? Foolish men, blind men, the drum cannot die, and now it has found its voice again." A murmur spread through the crowd. Fear deepened, thick as smoke. Mothers clutched their children tighter. That night, no one slept. Fires were kept burning in every hut. Some smeared ash on their foreheads to ward off spirits. Others whispered desperate prayers. But no matter what they did, the villagers knew that when midnight came, the drum would speak again. And it did. Boom. The sound rolled like thunder, shaking the very earth. This time, it came from deeper within the forest, closer to the heart of Obalanga than before. Boom. Olana. A mother shrieked, collapsing to her knees. Her little girl was barely 5. Boom. Okvu. The blacksmith's son, strong and bright-eyed, barely 16. Boom. Adeyemi. The chief's nephew. The names kept coming, each one a dagger in the heart of the village. 12 again, always 12. When it ended, the silence that followed was heavier than stone. The next morning, the bodies were found. Not all at once, but scattered one by the stream, one in the marketplace, one on the chief's very doorstep. Always with the same mark, chest hollowed, heart missing. But when they reached the last, horror seized them all. It was Olana, the little girl. Yet unlike the others, she was not lying on the ground. She was sitting upright, her tiny hands resting on her knees, her eyes wide open. And in her mouth, stuffed deep inside, was a roll of animal hide, stretched taut, the kind used to cover a drum. The villagers fled in terror, leaving her body behind. None dared touch her, none dared weep over her. For it was clear, the drum was not only killing, it was feeding. That night, the chief summoned the elders into council. They sat in a circle, shadows dancing on their faces from the torchlight. Fear gripped them, but also something darker, a knowing, unspoken guilt. For deep in their hearts, they recognized the signs. The drum had returned. The curse they thought buried had risen. And worse, it was hungry. But none spoke the truth aloud. Not yet. The chief looked at each of them, his cloudy eyes reflecting the fire. "Tomorrow," he said, "we shall send warriors into the forest. They will find the drum and burn it. Let fire silence it forever." The others nodded, though their silence betrayed doubt. Fire could not silence what had been born of flesh, blood, and vengeance. And as the meeting broke, as the men stumbled home with heavy steps, the wind carried a faint sound through the trees. A low, mocking laugh. The drum was listening, and it was not afraid.